Okay.
Are you ready? Okay. Faye Baynard and Pauline Heine were sisters, but they were quite different in size, and Gladys Stevens was quite heavy through the hips. And they had another girl with them, and then they wanted bowling dresses for the four of them, and I had to buy 4 patterns because they were all different sizes. And that's how I got started in 4-H, because Grace Ellis knew them, and Grace Ellis was a 4-H leader, and the daughters, her girls in her 4-H were going to make things that were beyond Grace's leadership. And she said to me, I saw the dresses that you made for the bowling girls, and I wonder if you would help my girls, they were all seniors, make their 4-H dresses. And so I said, I don't know a thing about 4-H, but I do know about sewing. She says, don't worry, I'll take care of the bookwork, and you take care of the sewing. So that's how I got started in 4-H.
And that was back when you lived in Port William.
Yeah, that 1949 to 50,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere along 1950.
Mm-hmm.
So, I taught them how to sew, and they did a real good job. And so, I learned to sew from Grandma Muller, and had an excellent home economics teacher who was Mrs. Wicker, and she had a thing that she would teach each of us a little bit on our own. So, ready now.
You want to talk about life on Sunfish Hill?
Did we go into this before?
I don't think we've done that before, Mom.
Life on Sunfish Hill. Sunfish Hill is on the top of the hill after you come out of Fort William, and it was to be sold in an auction when we had gone to Ohio State to the football game, and we didn't get back. And
Oh, we did do the part about how we got back. So this, remember, we did the whole story about how you bought the property. So now we're talking about after the auction, Daddy setting up his practice there.
Okay. Mrs. Starbuck was a little bit antsy to work with, but Dr. Starbuck didn't have any problems. And he was sick and he was older, and so he let her take care of things. And it wasn't long before we were on our own. And being out on that hill, the telephone line came in from Lumberton, and it was a party line. And so within 6 weeks, we had 3 different telephone numbers. But most of the fellows, if they couldn't get us on the phone, they just came to the house and made arrangements. And that's how Doc started from scratch on Sunfish Hill. Doc was called out to, we did have before, to Wilbur McKay, and Wilbur was a little older than Doc, and Doc had a lot of problems with digestion and the like, and having been in the service and in POW camp. And he said, Wilbur said, come sit with me next to me here on this well top. I want to talk to you. And so Wilbur said, Doc, just be yourself. These people aren't expecting a miracle. All they want is help. Just be yourself and forget about everything else. And that Doc got a very good friend out of Wilbur McKay. Sylvia and Greta and Fran were born on Sunfish Hill, and Dan and Fred were born in Wilmington. I mean, in Port William. They wanted to start a 4-H outdoor cookery club, and so Helen and Jim Store and Doc and I said we would help on it. It turned out we had 20 kids doing this.
And these were high schoolers when you only
Yeah.
had little ones.
They were high schoolers. And so we formed committees, and we were to barbecue chicken, and we were to buy the legs. Well, with the amount of money we had on the thing, it was impossible. And so we bought whole chickens and we cut them up. But we planned different ones. We formed buying committees, planning committees, cooking committees, and the like. And so Nedler Dome, whose father owned the mill, didn't worry about money. And she was on the cutting up committee. So they were all just a little squeamish about making their first or second
Cutting up the whole chicken
cutting up
to make it pieces because it was cheaper to buy the whole chickens.
Yeah. And so we got them all cut up and put in the refrigerator. And the next day then we had a meeting with barbecue chicken. Well, it worked out fine. And at Port William, when a young girl got married, there would be a committee of women get together, and they would have a community shower, and most of the time the gift was an ironing board and an iron, and everything went with that. And so 4 years later, Nedler Dome was to be married, and she was had one of these showers. And thank you note I got from Nedler was, I thank you for being on the committee, and I thank you for the ironing board and the iron and everything. But I want to thank you most for showing me how to cut up a chicken. Mother would never have had the nerve. Where are we now?
Let's see.
This is a community shower.
Absolutely. We were then going to talk about what happened after the house on Sunfish Hill. Do you have any special memories about the house on Sunfish Hill?
It was made with logs, about 6 inches thick and about 10 inches this way. And there was a fireplace, and on one side there was a window, and it was kind of dark back in there. And Doc said, well, let's just get the fellas to put a new window over in that side too. They began to cut through the logs, and they ruined 3 chainsaws because of the thickness of everything. Well, after about 5 years, we had Sunfish Hill paid off and money in the bank, and there was a farm coming up for sale, and it had been in the Williams family for years and years, and it was not to be sold until the last Williams passed away. And I guess the day after he passed away, they had the sale. And Odessa Coleman, who lived in Cincinnati, got the farm. She was Joe Bean's cousin, and she was also Wayne Woods' cousin. And Odessa didn't want Joe to have the farm because he had enough stuff. And so they went to Cincinnati to this realtor's and lawyer's office and to get things settled up. And finally, after bickering a while, Joe looked over at Doc and he said, Doc, all I want is a right of way to get from one farm to the other without going through Port William with a little bit, because I'd be cutting up the road. He said, I got enough old tires to put under it to go across Jamestown Road where I want to end up. And well, there's gates at both ends of the farm. Well, why can't you go through there? So it was settled, and we got the farm. Oh, and they couldn't, when it was in the Williams family, none of the trees could be cut. Well, as soon as they passed away, they cut a lot of the trees that were good for wood.
Odessa Coleman did. Once she owned it, you mean?
Yeah, she had the wood broker come in and mark them and take them. And so at that time, they'd leave stumps about 4 or 5 foot off the ground. And the 2.5 acres that are our yard had 60 some tree stumps in it. And we had a little Ford tractor, and it had a scoop, a lift in the front, and it had a chain in the back. And so we would, for 5 years, we would go up there and dig these stumps out and drag them over the back of the hill and just let them rot and let them, the soil